we talk about efficiency and productivity, that your brain can only, like, at any given moment have like 5 priorities really top of mind. And the minute something else pops into your brain, one of those has to move and make room for it, right? So I have found that having a partner who's really available for those items, as they start to pop out of my brain, I move them to this person and to the responsibility list. So that those are use cases, and it could literally be anything. Like, I just came from my this morning, and there's this new filing requirement for small businesses called the beneficial ownership form. Like, while that's top of mind, I'm going to put that on her list to figure out, like, just to make sure it's followed up on, put it on my calendar. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, I will be driving and I will literally, and this has been one of the best resources for me from an assistant perspective, I don't need to adhere to a standard of communication. I need to adhere to standards of the quality of my communication. I need to make sure I'm making, a clear ask with a clear deadline, with a defined deliverable, and like what success looks like, or when you should follow up with me. But the manner in which I do that, I do it on Slack, I do it on email, I do it through a text message, I do it through a voice memo if I'm driving. And that's been like changing to me, because I think in my mind, I pictured I will have this very organized to-do list and we will have a weekly status meeting, and that has not happened at all. But what has happened is the ability to have a trusted catch-all resource who can help my brain expand beyond those 5 things into whatever else might come my way. So that's been a really surprising utilization for me. And it's much like people who use their inbox as their to-do list. They won't delete an email until it's done. This allows me to have another inbox, if you will, if that makes sense. Another person looking out for my priorities, so that they don't have to all live here and give me tremendous anxiety and panic.
If you know you need help administratively, if you know you need an assistant, but you have a hard time figuring out, like, how would I utilize this person? What should I delegate to them? I know I could utilize them, but maybe I don't have enough to give them to merit actually working with someone. Today's conversation is for you. This conversation is with Erin Mills. She's the founder of Strat House Experience Co. She founded this company. It's headquartered in New Jersey and works with organizations across the globe in creating incredible live experiences. And she came on as a client with Dream Support just over a year ago and has been working with us since then. So she shares her journey of how she came to the point where she knew she needed help and to where she is today. I'm very excited to share her journey with you, so I hope you enjoy. Hey, Erin, thanks for joining me today with this conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know busy clients are busy clients. They have lots going on. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today so we can learn from you. First, I'd love to know but I'd love for you to describe a little bit about who you are and what you do in your business.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Mills. I'm the CEO and founder of Strat House. We are an experiential marketing and events agency that focuses solely on the B2B sector. And that is fancy speak for we produce interactive events and campaigns and content for businesses, ranging from tech companies to finance and VC firms, e-commerce, you name it. So wide variety of clients with varying needs. And on the personal side, I am the CEO of a home and a family of 3 children,
Nice.
and a kick-ass husband. And so when you combine sort of the demands of both jobs, which many in this audience are not unfamiliar with, I need help. And that's how I found you, and that's how we met. And but that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, when we first talked, what were the things that were weighing on you that you were like, I need help? What were some sort of signals to you?
Yeah. Well, I think it's something that it's funny. I preach this and I haven't practiced it as dutifully as I've spoken it, but as you ascend in your career, there's only one guarantee, and that is you will only be given more responsibility. You will never be given more time. And so I often say that to my team when helping them think through their workflow and their plans. And obviously the key to any successful like mileage out of your work is delegation, right? You have to understand how to prioritize and delegate. And I was doing that, I think, really well from a client perspective, but I wasn't doing it as well as it related to the business and the operations of the business and then the operations of my family. And so I thought, okay, I really need to figure out a trusted a trusted resource that I can trust certain aspects and kind of set it and forget it, and just I need to develop a shorthand with an individual who can kind of
Mm,
be a partner in crime, if you will, across varying needs. And someone who kind of, I think the big turning point was understanding that like I've tried assistants in the past and coordinators and things of that nature. And I really realized that like the intersection for me of skills was going to be someone who could help me juggle both business and personal needs. And
right.
that's kind of how I landed on your doorstep, is how can I find someone? And I really like, what was really attractive to me was the virtual workforce option that you offer, because it really fits well in the nature of our business. And frankly,
Right.
it fits really well in the nature of like my needs. I needed someone who was willing to kind of be accessible and available and up for anything. So that's where I was introduced to you.
Awesome. And what's sort of like the tech stack that you guys utilize together?
Sure. So we use a variety of, so in-house, we use Google, right? So
Mhm.
Google is our platform, Google Docs, Google Calendar, what have you. And then we use Slack. And so the complexity really comes in when it comes to our clients, because again, we are an agency, so we service many different brands and organizations, and they all have their own tech stacks. So
Right.
between, and I mentioned Microsoft earlier, Microsoft's the clients, and we're on Teams for Microsoft, and we don't collaborate in Google, obviously, for Microsoft. So that's where things get very complicated. We also use a lot of, what I love as a business owner is I feel like it's a great time to start a business 4 years ago, because there were so many booming um, small business resources such as Wave. We use Wave for bookkeeping, Gusto for contractor and employee management and payment. And so those are two platforms that are part of the operational stack that I have loved and continue to champion. The other thing I will say is everyone on my team chooses their own email server, their own email client, right? Whatever. We
Okay.
obviously use Google Gmail as our backend, but I personally have been on Superhuman for the last 2.5 years, 2 years, I think, and I love it. And I always joke that like I'm totally going through a midlife crisis because my email server is superhuman. I drink bulletproof coffee. Like every sign is there. I'm trying to just make the most of my time
Yeah, that's
and my
awesome.
energy and my energy. But I love superhuman. And no, I'm not paid to say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, while you're on it, like what do you love about it?
So, are you familiar with it?
I have not played with it, but I know about it. So tell
Okay.
me.
So essentially, I used to be one of those Outlook girls who essentially had to have like a million folders, and I would
Mhm.
drag and drop, and I had this, and always try inbox zero, elusive, elusive, elusive. So Superhuman does a couple cool things. But one of my favorites is that everything is shorthand keystrokes. I don't know if you're like a Control Alt Delete type of person, but if you are familiar with
Mhm.
sort of shortcuts through keystrokes, everything is in that. So you don't ever have to use your mouse when you're in Superhuman. I never use it. I can
Interesting.
power through my inbox. So it's like literally to file something, it's like two clicks, like it's not even clicks, two fingers. And so you start to, so it's just a lot of shorthand. There's tons of
Yeah.
shortcuts. The other thing that's great about it is it has really good sensing of other. It's called other. So it prioritizes clients, it prioritizes people that like it's kind of like it's like a not a junk box, but it really has a great filter that basically moves anything that doesn't probably need your attention into this other box that I only check once a day. And it has a great capture of everything like client wise. And I didn't even have to set that. It just becomes attuned really quickly to like who you're writing and what type of things you're filing and advertising, and then everything else just gets sifted into this other mailbox because it presumes you could look at it once a day and be fine. And so that really helps me stay focused. So I love it.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's nice. That's really interesting. And is there, it's sort of like, but it came out before the quote unquote AI revolution. So
it
it's
did.
gotten even better since things have been released.
Yeah, now there's an opportunity, like it'll write drafts for you to respond, and it'll also summarize the email. So if you look at the top, it'll kind of give you a quick summary of what's included, which is helpful because I can quickly scan it and see like challenge, problem, crisis. I was like, okay, got to look at that email.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's pretty cool.
And just so everyone knows, like not sponsored and there's no affiliate link here. So go discover that
No,
yourself. if you want to.
No, exactly. And the other thing I liked about when I was onboarding, like I don't even know if they still do this based on scale at this point, but I
Uh,
offered it one-on-one. Like, so I literally had like a session where I literally said to this woman, wait, I only use Outlook. Like, I don't think I'm gonna, and she was like, and so she like helped me discover like what would be most useful for me. And I will say they have amazing customer service. Anytime I shoot them a note, I hear back almost instantaneously from a live person. So yeah, isn't that funny? I really should probably like talk to them.
that's
Be an
awesome.
ambassador for that.
You should. I mean, you just, put it on my signature block, whatever. That's awesome. Yeah. So getting back to your EA. So tell me about the process for you, working with us, finding that EA, that sort of thing. Tell me about your experience.
Yeah. Well, so I think the first thing I'll say is that you took a lot of time to get to know me and the organization and like what our needs are, before you even put forth a candidate, which I really appreciate. It wasn't just sort of like here's someone who's available, you need this. It was more strategic, and I appreciated that approach. And what I will say is that the first candidate you introduced me to was a great fit. And she was with me for several months. And then she decided to pursue a career change. And the way that the entire process was handled was amazing. She and I keep in touch to this day, just on a personal level, because she was lovely. And just the kind of, I think, rigor that you've built into your system. You have so many great resources for the assistant community. You've got your dedicated Slack channel. There's a lot of templates and knowledge sharing that goes on. So what I was kind of, I think, delighted to discover is that along the way, as working together, she had been documenting things and kind of creating this book of Erin, which
Right.
is really funny when you read it. You're like, oh, wow. But it had all of this really helpful information so that by the time she did transition, she had this like wealth of knowledge. And so making, the change to a new hire at that point was pretty easy relatively. And so, yeah, I think what was, again, great about it is you took your time to figure out, like you said, it maybe it's going to take me a week or two to figure out, like, I want to talk to a few people. And I appreciated that. You didn't just like give me an applicant pool and say, here you go.
Right.
It was
Right.
like a very curated process. And I feel like even my assistant now, Felicia, who's incredible, and I will sing her praises publicly. It was a great match, and you took the time to figure it out, and really enjoy working with her.
That's awesome. Yeah. What I don't want to do is give somebody a portal that they can go browse 100 applicants or something. Like that's just why am I even talking to you if
Yeah.
that's the deal, right? Because you could go do that somewhere else and whatever. But if we narrow it down and we say, here's option one, if you want to talk to option two, we can find that. But here's option one.
Hmm.
And then you have opportunity to meet them before you say yes or no. And yeah, I just like that process a lot better than sort of sending you a bunch of resumes or CVs or whatever. And you
Oh
got
yeah.
to sift through it and say, I want to talk to this person. Because honestly, resumes don't tell the story. So, it they help, right? They're like a little color to the story, but they don't tell the story
Right.
um, of what you could find with someone. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
really important.
Well, and the
Um,
goal is automation, right? I mean, ultimately, like, so like, it's funny, you're almost a form of AI, except for you're the human form of it,
from a
right?
person, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Like that's essentially what that's your product. That's what you bring to market are individuals who can anticipate needs, analyze data and provide support. So you are kind of the human form of AI. And that's what we need. So I don't think a busy executive appreciates like having to sift through any kind of material. Like we
Right.
much prefer having the legwork done and like personalized recommendations. And that's why we're in this boat in the first place. That's why we need support. So it's great that you provide that out of the gate.
Yeah, awesome. Tell me about like maybe some of the people ask me, what is the use case? Like, how can I utilize this person? So maybe tell me sort of the extreme. Like, what's the strangest thing or the most out of the box thing maybe you've asked an assistant to do?
That's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment because I feel like most of my requests are strange. um, a lot of times, again, as I mentioned, what's really helpful to me is being able to again, visions for both my home and for my workplace, and then have someone just like as my partner to make them happen. So that has included uh, birthday parties, extravaganzas, finding a limousine for my daughter for her Barbie themed birthday. Um, and in the same breath, though, being able to look at CRM solution software, like, so that's what's great is like I literally, and I think that's probably what's funny. Is what's less funny is probably the asks. It's probably the juxtaposition between the asks. It's like, could you please be a strategic thinker and help me evaluate CRM platforms that we could integrate given our tech stack? And at the same time, would you also mind looking at cakes, so really that breadth of, I think, is what's probably interesting that people probably don't think about. And I think sometimes there's this unnecessary guilt that a lot of parents feel when they can't personally have their hand in every aspect of that. And so for me, I really enjoy the creation part of planning things for my family, but there's no shame in getting help actually executing them, right? So I'm the one who went to the birthday party with my daughter. I'm the one who visioned this experience and got everything together and the invites out. And I'm the one to enjoy the party with her, but having a resource who simultaneously was helping me calendar business affairs around this day for my daughter so that I could enjoy it. Like that's been like really life-changing to me. And those things that pop up as you're driving. I once heard from, I think it's David Allen, we talk about efficiency and productivity, that your brain can only, like, at any given moment have like 5 priorities really top of mind. And the minute something else pops into your brain, one of those has to move and make room for it, right? So I have found that having a partner who's really available for those items, as they start to pop out of my brain, I move them to this person and to the responsibility list. So that those are use cases, and it could literally be anything. Like I just came from my this morning, and there's this new filing requirement for small businesses called the beneficial ownership form. Like while that's top of mind, I'm going to put that on her list to figure out, like, just to make sure it's followed up on, put it on my calendar. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, I will be driving and I will literally, and this has been one of the best resources for me from an assistant perspective, I don't need to adhere to a standard of communication. I need to adhere to standards of the quality of my communication. I need to make sure I'm making, a clear ask with a clear deadline, with a defined deliverable, and like what success looks like, or when you should follow up with me. But the manner in which I do that, I do it on Slack, I do it on email, I do it through a text message, I do it through a voice memo if I'm driving. And that's been like changing to me, because I think in my mind, I pictured I will have this very organized to-do list and we will have a weekly status meeting. And that has not happened at all. But what has happened is the ability to have a trusted catch-all resource who can help my brain expand beyond those 5 things into whatever else might come my way. So that's been a really surprising utilization for me. And it's much like people who use their inbox as their to-do list. They won't delete an email until it's done. This allows me to have another inbox, if you will, if that makes sense. Another person looking out for my priorities so that they don't have to all live here and give me tremendous anxiety and panic.
Yeah, that's awesome. A couple of things you talked about there. I really like the idea of removing the sort of guilt from having someone help you with your personal affairs.
Yeah.
It's actually, when you are a busy leader, that is actually recommended, because if you don't, then you're sort of cheating some way or the other, and not giving your best, because there are things that someone else can do and should do to help you accomplish what you're trying to do. And then the other thing, you were talking about that catch-all, and we decided early on, and this was a decision we made, that we weren't going to force clients to be in a certain kind of communication trap or tech stack. It was all going to be like, you mentioned, all our clients have different things that they're utilizing. And so we integrate with them, and we're the same way. We integrate with our clients and don't say, you have to submit, your request through this queue somewhere. And, it just, that doesn't work for leaders. That may work for some people, but that doesn't work for leaders. And I love the idea that you can just call, voice note, text via voice while you're talking, while you're driving, and get those things moved off your plate and onto hers. That's the ideal scenario, because if you wait till you're sitting still You've
Yeah.
forgotten already half the things that you were doing.
100%. 100%. It has been probably the most surprising and exciting discovery about this whole process was that just that freedom that comes with having a trusted resource who's willing to meet you where you are. And where that is very different depending on the day or the hour, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah.
Right. And the amazing thing is, she'll take that information wherever it comes from and she'll put it in her central queue, right? That's the point, is that she keeps it organized on her end. You can, you know, it can come from wherever.
100%. Yeah.
When you think about, you know, were there any challenges along the way to help you kind of get to this point that you had to overcome?
In terms of being ready to accept help, you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that I've had to, and this mentality actually applies to not just this, but just business owning in general, owning a business in general, I could say that better, is that there's going to be efficiency and there's going to be waste. And what I mean by that is I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. And because, I have obviously employees, contractors, essentially when you're in this seat, your resources are only as good as the direction they receive. And so you really have to structure your day in such that you are communicating out first and foremost, and you are and you are setting everyone up for success. You are outlining your expectations and developing channels that then they have independence and autonomy to come back to you. But you are literally, your resources are only as good as the clarity and motivation and everything that you use, right? So I think I worry a lot about just like waste. Like if I want to prioritize something in the morning, I have 5 people who can't make a move now because either there was something that happened last night or whatever. So and then in turn I think, well, what about my assistant today? Like I haven't given her anything to do. So she might be sitting on hours. And so I had to abandon the whole notion of like you're not going to make the most out of every hour of every employee and every person in the day. And that's okay. And no one can. And you're only one person. So I had to kind of get over it. And so I think for a long time, how that was impeding me in terms of bringing on an assistant, I was like, I know there's days where I'm not even going to be able to speak to a person. And so I don't want them just sitting on their hands because number one, that's demotivating. Number two, it's not a great use of funding, right? But what I've realized is that by just, again, getting over that fear and just realizing that you sort of have to just, if you build it, here we go, field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. You have to just start somewhere and start putting the resources in place, even if you're not quite sure how you're going to use them, because you know enough. And you have to be careful. You have to hedge your bets. You can't overcommit. But it's sort of like, and this is how I've built my career. If you do put the right resources into place, they become busy and they get more work, and that work pays for the new resources. And so you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith. And you have to understand, you have to be uncomfortable with the idea that at certain times people will be waiting on you. and you just can't possibly be in a million places at once and telling everyone, how to proceed or do this or weigh in. And another big eye-opening thing is, guess what? In the absence of that direction, oftentimes if you've picked the right people, they will figure it out. They will take initiative. They will do. And so it's just having the confidence and knowing that it's not going to be perfect, that you have to essentially just be willing to start to lay down the groundwork and understand that there might be so I think that was the big thing for me. And I think that also allowed me to develop sort of, and I still need to do this, I need to develop some sort of evergreen activities for my assistants.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm whether that is a CRM, data entry, whatever, that is my next big move, because I think this is why your service is so great. Oftentimes I might use 5 hours one week, but then the next week I might need 12. And there's generally an allowance or a graciousness with that. You know what I mean? And I know you have to obviously be mindful of commitments and other clients, et cetera, because some of your resources are shared, but it's never been a problem for me. It's been very fair. And so I think from that perspective, I really appreciate the leniency. But I think what would be also really helpful is developing this bank of kind of always on projects that are not time sensitive, that could be chiseled away at in downtime. And so that's sort of my next, I think, iteration of this relationship.
Absolutely. I think that's great, because what I talk about with clients and assistants is, hey, let's have the projects, right? Those are things that start and stop. They're short term. They're go find this, find the limo, get, find the cake, whatever it is. And then there's also ongoing buckets of responsibility, right? You're just responsible for these things on an ongoing basis. And that's like exactly right. You've got both. And the assistants know how to like swing back and forth between those and prioritize between those. Um, that's exactly the best use case for an assistant. I always tell people if they just want someone to do a project, they come to me, they're like, I need some help with this one project. Yeah, I could probably point you to a couple people that can help you, but to work with us, you're probably going to want more like ongoing things, right? You're going to want some things that you want to get off your plate forever. So yeah, totally. I think that would be a great use case. Now, you, on the other hand, also have lots of projects happening all the time. Not everybody has that.
Yeah.
So that is an ongoing bucket, is projects,
Yeah.
but probably be some other things too. Um, what what would you say to a leader who's sort of teetering on that? I'm not sure I have enough for someone to do, but I also have these days where I feel completely overwhelmed. What would you say to someone like that?
Yeah, sure. I think I would say that when I reflect back on I think it's been over a year at this point that we've worked together. I think that having an assistant has made me be a better version of who I want to be, both at home and at the office. And I think about things that were aspirational previously. And one of the things about Strat House, and I think in terms of the way I hoped to be in business and personally, is just I really believe in recognition, and I really believe in recognizing milestones. So whether that be a promotion of a client or a new baby, or unfortunately if someone is going through a time of grief. And so that is so essential to me. And having an assistant is a great opportunity for me to make sure I'm checking the box every time. Like the flowers, the new baby gift, the this, the that. Like we don't miss a beat in terms of the kind of the energy and the care that we hope to put out into the world, because we have, our assistant helping us like make sure that we're hitting every milestone. Like I used to be the kind of person like I would go to like a dinner, to get away from the kids for the night. And I would realize at 5:30 as I'm waiting for like the babysitter to get here so I can jump in the shower, like, oh man, I don't have a bottle of wine. I didn't flat. Like, oh my, like I was always panicked. I was always last minute. Now I'm like, oh yeah, 2 days ago, their hostess gift arrived because I had the foresight to have someone else take care of it for me. So I'm now like doing a lot of the things that I always want to do, but that ultimately end up causing stress in the end because I think of them last minute, and so again, I would say that like, think of the aspirational you, think of the person that you know you are and can be, which probably sounds actually really corny. but I mean, but it's little things that move the needle. It's literally little things. I mean, think about, you know, oftentimes I think I probably am getting at least an hour a week back that I didn't have prior. That's allowing me to take like a walk every Monday morning. Like I try to start my week off with like a walk just to center myself. And before I used to just like Monday morning would just hit me like a ton of bricks. And now I'm just, so it's like it's not only just the effort of having the assistant and the resources, but it's also the mindset shift of like reclaiming your time, organizing yourself, and realizing that like you can actually accomplish quite a ton if you're just deploying your time and resources correctly. So I would just think like get excited about the opportunity, because I think the opportunity will tip you, and just know it'll be a little uncomfortable at first and you have to get used to the idea that you might not be fully utilizing this resource out of the gate, but give it time. And then you'll find yourself hopefully like where I am a year later thinking, wow, this was like really life changing and I don't know what I could do without her. So.
Wow. I think there's also and I don't know if Felicia's doing this for you, but there's also a foresight that you have, but you can also unleash them to have some foresight into your calendar and say, hey, you have this dinner party coming up. Do you want me to go ahead, knowing that about you and your preferences? Do you want me to go ahead and order your favorite, hostess gift or the wine that you like or whatever? And you may have something special for that or particular, but I think that's a great next level, right? Is getting
100%.
it to think like you and foresee those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share before I let you go?
No, well, I just had a funny follow-up thought when you mentioned the pink limo again. So here's how great Felicia is. So not only did she help me arrange the pink limo and this really amazing sort of makeover glam party for my daughter's 7th birthday, but she has a twin brother who wanted, of course, nothing to do with the Barbie party. However, we had his own party planned for the very next day, and it didn't occur to me that, and it should have, that he, of course, would need special transportation if his sister's getting a pink limousine. And so I will never forget being at the pediatrician's office because the same child had an ear infection, of course, the day before his birthday, and texting Felicia from the pediatrician's office, like, is there any way you could find a party bus? She's like, for when? I'm like, tomorrow morning. It was like a Sunday morning. I was like, tomorrow morning, and sure enough, she found us a party bus. So it just goes to show, and again, I could be sitting in the pediatrician's office, like, again, trying to care for my sick son, have the Barbie party later in the day, and just knowing that there's someone I can text and who's got my back, who's going to help me try to figure things out is amazing. So
Wow.
I'll end with that story. It was another one of Felicia's miracles. There's been so many. So
That's so awesome. I love that. I love that. That was like on a Saturday. You're talking like you texted her on a Saturday.
on a Saturday.
We don't normally, we don't like promise that to all of our clients, but if it's a quick thing, a lot of times people are pretty open to it.
Of
So
course. And I probably caveat it with this, like any chance you're around, like my expectation would have been not that she would have been around, but she went
yeah,
the extra step. And that's
yeah.
important to me too. And we've established really good, I think, healthy communication boundaries. She's a devoted grandmother. She's a devoted mother. She has, other clients. And so I think she's really good at communicating, like, I'm going to be driving tomorrow. I'm out of pocket because I'm going to be watching my grandchild, so we have a really great system, where she'll let me know if she's going to be out of pocket. I'll in turn let her know if I anticipate some needs are going to be coming up, like, just so you know, if you could be around
Hmm.
Tuesday afternoon. So that's really, I think, a good key to our success. And it's also how you can make a modified schedule work really well. We do not have a 40-hour a week arrangement. And I was a little
Right.
nervous about that. Like, I was like, how is that going to work? And it's worked great. It's worked really well. So yeah.
That's awesome. And she's planning her wedding now.
I
So
know. That's the other thing. I know. So for example, she let me know she'd be on the road for her engagement photos. And I was like, oh, right. So yeah. Yeah. She's phenomenal. I yeah, can't say enough great things. I hope everyone listening finds their Felicia.
oh, that's awesome. So if somebody you guys put together amazing experiences, you work with a lot of large organizations, companies. If someone wanted to kind of research that, where would they find you?
Yeah, thanks. You could go to our website, strathouse.com. That's strat-house.com. My husband says no one knows what a hyphen is, but if you watched Wheel of Fortune growing up, you do. It's the middle dash. Uh,
Yeah.
so anyway, so yeah, that's where you could start, learn a little bit more about us, and you could reach us that way.
Awesome. Thanks so much for spending the time with me today, and hope we get to work together a long time.
Me too. Thanks so much, Micah. Take care.
You too.